Hiya nerds, I have some comics to show you, but first, I have some explaining to do. So, moving forward, it might not be as many comics. Now, I say that, I have a gazillion still to show you. But I'll give you an example. I just bought a collection, 1,800 bucks, for about 1,500 Bronze and Copper Age, mostly Marvel comics. So you do the math and it's like a little bit more than $1 a comic. But then it also come with a lot of vintage toys, which I'm hoping to do more. So it also came with a complete 79 12-inch Boba Fett and a Soundwave and a Yoda with a brown snake and Pac-Man eyes. So good stuff. That's been where my interest has been going, more into the vintage toys, particularly the 70s sci-fi toys. And if I could find some Buck Rogers and a ROM the Space Knight, because I have so many Joes and Transformers and Star Wars because they're everywhere. So I'm looking for kind of the weird stuff when I get collections. But obviously still comics as well. And so I got a ton of those comics, but I have so many comics, it's getting harder to justify buying comic collections unless there's something really unique about them. Particularly because I'm shutting down my booth at the Pink Elephant, which is where I would sell a lot of my comics. The theft was this, so much stuff getting stolen. It was breaking my heart. It was making me sad. So I'm shutting that down. And the Pink Elephant was great for selling like $4, $5, $6, $7 comics sold. They would just fly out of there, right? And you don't want to mess with that on eBay. So even this collection that I just bought, that's 1,500 Bronze Age comics, there are no crazy bangers in there, right? So it's a lot of $5, $6, $7 comics, which are difficult at eBay unless you bundle them up and lot them in some way. It's just not worth the trouble to put anything less than 10 bucks on eBay, and even that's pushing it because of the fees. So with that shutting down and not knowing what I'm going to do there, it just doesn't make sense to buy a lot of collections. So I'll probably still focus on working on getting some grails, that sort of things that I really want, and probably won't do as many of that, right? Because if I'm not selling, I want to sell enough to make it sustainable, right? I'll keep a few things for my collection and sell some of the stuff that I have duplicates of, and it makes it sustainable. So I wanted to share all that to let you know, moving forward, vintage toys, also Dungeons and Dragons I'm still buying, and obviously still some comics as well. And Google gets really angry at me when I change my content mix, and there are some other folks that have subscribed and said, we just want to do comic covers. Fair enough, I understand, but, I'm the boss of me. So that's where it's happening, but today will be comics. I think you'll like these comics. They're fun. There'll be a few more comic videos coming because I'm not even to the place where I'll show you the collection that I bought just recently or any of these toys. But for now, let's look at some cool comics. Okay, so I promised comics still, but talking about toys. So here's what we're going to do now. This will be novelty comics. And so novelty comics, by that I mean non-superhero, but not necessarily genre. So I'm not talking about science fiction or fantasy as much as IP tie-in, toy comics, so sort of thing. And so, one of the most well-known is the Transformers. The Transformers, where it says #1 in a 4-issue limited series. That's how it started. And so you see #1, #2, #3, and then #4. But then look at this, #5, because that 4-issue limited series proved to be so popular, obviously, because it's the Transformers, that they just kept on rolling. And just issue after issue after issue. So if you can't see over here, it's a kind of a full run of those. Then I'm not going to show you every issue because I care about you too much to make you sit through a 20-minute video. But you can see #5, they just kept rolling, and this is actually quite a popular cover because of the content of the cover. Then obviously, in addition to Transformers, around that same era, you had MotU, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Now this is the first issue of the Marvel series under their Star Comics in print, but it started out 3 issues on DC, a little mini series, then switched to Marvel, and currently I am collecting all of those, and they get to be a little bit pricey, so I am waiting to see when I can find them in a collection pickup, rather than issue by issue paying eBay prices, which is crazy. Voltron. So look at this modern. But if you look at the trade dress, you would think that was a Marvel comic during that era, right? Gosh, that would have been what, 83, 84, maybe 85. But Voltron, that's good. I'm not going to try to collect those because that would just be hard. Shogun Warriors is something I love. I was a little too young for the toys, so I was firmly a G1 Transformers guy. The first year, the 1982-83 era of G.I. Joe, that's where I got hooked in. MotU during that time. Shogun Warriors were late 70s. But they were cool toys, and I missed them as a kid. But that's where my collecting interest lies now, is kind of those 70s toy lines. The robots, the Shoguns, the things with ray guns and spaceships, and that's what I'm loving now. So I think I'm going to put together a run of Shogun Warriors, but I'm not positive. So here's 1, 2, 3, and 5, and as you can see, I don't have a run, but I'm thinking maybe I will do that. So in addition to toys, there are cartoons. So you have Scooby-Doo. I don't have anything to say about that except that it's a Scooby-Doo comic. And right after this is SMURFS #1, which when I was a little kid watching SMURFS, it was a great time to be alive. It was a wonderful era to grow up as a kid, certainly. So here's what is next, is Atari Force. So this was DC. Frankly, I have no idea anything about Atari Force, except I picked up a collection and they had a full run, and I'm going to read it because I don't know anything about it. But I look at the character design, and I'm like, gosh, that looks fun. That looks like the Micronauts. That looks like, you think of these IPs, these big properties, and you're like, gosh, that slides in really well with the things that I love, and I've never read it. I assume it's creating a universe around the video game system, but I cannot confirm that, knowing nothing about it and having not read that. I will save you going through the full run, but I'm excited about that. I think it's like 30 issues, something like that. So here is, obviously, we jumped to the big boy, right? This is G.I. Joe. This was the IP. Every young lad in the 80s and really into the 90s, G.I. Joe. Love G.I. Joe, collected G.I. Joe. That's issue #1, which, isn't super valuable. I think 80 bucks maybe, depending upon condition, but it's still a great comic and I'm happy to own it. There's #2. And here's #21, kind of the Grail G.I. Joe comic, where the price has come down significantly on that. You used to not be able to touch it for under 200 bucks. Now you see them, 40 bucks in places. But this is the famous silent issue where there's not a peep of dialogue in the whole thing. The legend Larry Hama drew it and wrote it. So here is one of the IPs that was one of my sneaky favorites, and where my toy collecting is really trying to focus. Mask, loved him as a kid. Had a ton, wish I still had him. They're hard to find complete mint. You find the figures all the time without their helmets. Obviously their helmets were a big deal for them, a big part of but it was like G.I. Joe merged with Transformers. These vehicles, like you could see this here, for example, was just a regular sports car that transformed into like a tank thing. All of a sudden a car could fly, a semi would turn into a mobile command, and here was Boulder Hill. So it was a great line. There's issue 3, issue 4, and I do think I'm going to collect those comics in full, but I will be patient and get them at a good deal. But it was great. Mask. If you have Mask toys you want to sell me, hit me up, because that's where I'm collecting now. All right, I'm cheated. This is a little bit of superhero stuff, but MAGIK was a little different. It had the Limbo, it had the sword and sorcery as much as it had superhero stuff. And when we're talking about genre stuff and IP and fun things, obviously as a kid, I loved MAGIK and during that era. And then this is a super popular cover among collectors, and so that comic holds a little bit of value. And when I say a little bit of value, I mean $40, right? Here's Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was based upon a movie, but was still fun. I realize not a toy, but they did make toys from that. And then fitting in with a little bit of genre stuff, we will close this out with some Red Sonja from Conan and Shanna, the Savage, the she-devil from Khazar. All right, nerds, I hope you enjoyed that. As promised, I showed you some comics, but I snuck in some toys and some IP comics while I was at it. There'll probably be a little more of that. Remember, my heart goes out to vintage toys and Dungeons and Dragons as well. And so I'm gonna see if I can stretch your legs a little bit on this channel and start to weave in some of that stuff as well. And as I said, I bought a comic collection, and so there's a lot of comics coming up as well. And I'm constantly getting stuff, but expect some ways to show this stuff. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more, just subscribe, hit like, all those things that I'm contractually obligated to ask you to do via Google. All right, take care, nerds. Bye.